Good day, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is Parkinson's disease and communication challenges, navigating swallowing and speech disorders. Thank you for joining us today. These complimentary webinars are brought to you through a collaboration of sponsorship with Alzheimer's Orange County, Caring Companions at Home, and O'Connor Mortuary. My name is Kim Bailey, and I work here at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'll be your host today. Our sponsors are providing these webinars to you as a service to the community on topics that are beneficial for anyone who cares for and works with older adults. We hope that you find today's presentation especially informative and useful. And our presenter is going to be Hillary Byatt. And before I introduce her to you, I want to review with you what you need to know if you're interested in earning continuing education credit for today's webinar. So we'll go to the next slide. All right, so CE credit is available for RCFE administrators, licensed RNs and LVNs, and for LMFT, LCSW, LEP, and LPCC professionals through CAMP and BBS. You must be online for the full 60 minutes. You must have access to both audio and visual on your computer. If you want CE credit, do not share your link to join with others. This is your unique record of attendance. If you share your link or use another attendee's link, you will not receive CE credit. Please answer the poll questions immediately. This is proof of your active attendance. If you have any problems accessing or answering the poll questions, you can simply type your answer into the chat box to let us know that you're having trouble. And that way we know you're actively attending. So do watch for those poll questions and answer them promptly. There will be a survey that you can complete immediately as you exit the webinar. You'll only receive that survey link by email if you don't complete the survey when you initially exit the webinar. The email with the survey link is sent out 24 hours at the end of the webinar. And this link is unique to you and your attendance. So again, please don't share it with others. And then a certificate of completion will be issued to you by email within 10 days, as long as you've met all of the other CE requirements. So just some basics for everyone. Your mic and video are automatically disabled and will remain so throughout the presentations. But you will have the opportunity to ask our presenter questions about the presentation. And you can do that by typing your question into the chat box in the taskbar, or just put it into the chat. We'll save your questions and answer them at the conclusion of the webinar. If the Q&A session runs long, you are welcome to stay for that. But if you're requesting CE credit, you're only required to stay for the 60 minutes. Again, remember to complete the survey immediately as you exit the webinar, and we will not be responding to raised hands during this session. With all that said, now I'd like to introduce our speaker today, and she is Hillary Byatt. She's the Chief Operating Officer and Speech Language Pathologist at Parkinson Voice Project. She graduated from SMU in Dallas with a BBA and earned an MS in Communication Disorders from UT at Dallas. She has over 30 years of experience in healthcare. Parkinson Voice Project is a nonprofit organization located in Richardson, Texas. Their mission is to help people with Parkinson's and related neurological disorders to regain and retain their speech and swallowing. Parkinson Voice Project Speak Out therapy program is a highly effective evidence-based treatment that combines education, individual and group speech therapy, daily home practice, and continuous follow-ups for no charge. Parkinson Voice Project is now replicating its no-charge online speech therapy clinic across America. One university speech therapy clinic in every state will be named a Speak Out Therapy and Research Center. From this one clinic, every person with Parkinson's will have access to speak out, therapy. 25 centers have been established so far. That's so impressive. And we're so happy that we have you with us today, Miss Byatt. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to you now. Thank you so much.
Kim, thank you for that very kind intro. I'm so excited to be here. So, we are going to start today with an overview of the basics of Parkinson's. And then I will move into how it can affect one's speech, voice, and swallowing. And then finally, I'll have some good news about how we know to help folks. So, let's begin at the beginning. So in 1817, Dr. James Parkinson, you may have heard of him, he was the first one who documented people with the signs and symptoms of what we know now is Parkinson's. What's so interesting, I think, about this and curious is that he was the first one to actually notice these patients. There were two of his own patients who started to have tremors and some other signs and symptoms. And then he found four other people. And he wrote down his notes here in the essay on the shaking palsy, which you can find in the Library of Congress. It's interesting to note Dr. Bas Bloom, who is a renowned neurologist out of the Netherlands, I just heard him present a few months ago at TCU in Fort Worth. And he brought up the very interesting point, I think, that not before 1817 was Parkinson's like symptoms observed. And so he actually and his colleague have done thorough research into the other research of that time, literature of that time, and people who were acting with these signs and symptoms were not present. His theory is that whatever was happening in London at that time could have been a significant cause. And of course, if we think back to 1817, industrial revolution, pollution out of control, that's what may have kicked it off. So let's move on to about 55 years later. And then we meet Dr. Jean-Martin Charcot. He was a French neurologist. And he thought that Dr. Parkinson's work was very important. And so he wanted to honor the work he had done. So he's the one who suggested naming the shaking palsy to Parkinson's to honor Dr. Parkinson's. He brought up two really interesting points, though, too, about Parkinson's. He wanted to separate it from other neuromuscular diseases in that Parkinson's did not have muscles affected by Parkinson's. And the other part that he talked about is that not all patients actually had a tremor. We know now that about 70% of patients with Parkinson's will show a resting tremor, but it's not all of them. So to expand upon the muscle I referenced earlier, is that people with Parkinson's are not weak, is what he observed. And you might think, if you know someone with Parkinson's or if you have Parkinson's, you might think, no, people with Parkinson's are weak. But what happens is it's not that Parkinson's is making them weak. What happens is that muscles become weak because they're not used to their full capacity, not because Parkinson's is making them weak. So think about if you have had a recent broken ankle or a sprain and you're not able to walk, move your ankle or foot as you normally would. As you go through rehab, it's challenging, right? You have to stretch out those muscles and tendons again, and that's a struggle. So, folks with Parkinson's are not fully using all of their muscles, and so they become weak. And we'll talk more about that as it relates to speech in just a moment. So think about Parkinson's. It is characterized by reduced amplitude of movement. Everything is made smaller. So smaller walking. People might take very tiny shuffling steps. The arm movements that we think of that happen naturally are not happening. Writing is often an early sign that someone has Parkinson's because their writing turns into something very small, and then a smaller voice. We'll talk about that more too. So what is causing all of this? There's theories on environmental pollutants, pesticides, chemicals, and genes have a factor in it as well. So what actually happens though is that neurons that produce a chemical, a neurotransmitter called dopamine, die or become impaired. They actually are proteins that become misfolded and they don't work right. Um, when someone is finally diagnosed with Parkinson's, meaning they may have had some symptoms over time, but when they finally go to the neurologist and have that diagnosis, on average, folks have lost up to 80% of their dopamine. That's a lot. And so this dopamine is not returning. So, how important is dopamine? Well, let me tell you. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that transmits impulses from one neuron to the next for the planning and controlling of automatic muscle movements. I'm going to say that again. The controlling of automatic muscle movements. So without enough dopamine, automatic movements are disrupted. So that is the reason that this walking, talking, and writing becomes so much more difficult because these are things that happen automatically. You don't think about writing a note. You don't think about walking from one office to the next. You don't think about talking or swallowing. All these things happen automatically. When you have Parkinson's, all of that changes. And so these things that are we who don't have Parkinson's take for granted become challenging. So I'll pause now and we'll do this poll question.
Okay, the poll question is dopamine affects automatic movements. Attendees, is that true or false? Once again, the statement says dopamine affects automatic movements. Please select your answer. If for any reason you're having difficulty with the poll, you can put your answer into the chat. So we give you just a few more seconds to accomplish that. Dopamine affects automatic movements. I think we've pretty much got everybody weighed in. Let's go ahead and release the results.
Okay.
Excellent job, everyone. Now back to you,
Thank
our
you.
wonderful speaker.
Thank you. Okay, so I just X that out. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so back to dopamine, that's where we were. With less dopamine, these automatic movements are disrupted. They are no longer smooth and coordinated. That's why, again, when you see someone walking with Parkinson's, their gait may appear like it stops and starts. They may freeze. They may have difficulty with transitions, like from one room to the other. Arms are not swinging in that natural way. That is what you're seeing. So think about some other activities that you probably take for granted. Getting up and down out of a chair, picking up a fork, swallowing your own saliva. All of these things we do automatically without any conscious effort. Here's an example of something else that you probably do automatically: driving. So you are leaving work, let's say, and you're having friends over, and you think to yourself, I have to run by Whole Foods and grab some eggplant because I'm going to make some fabulous baba ganoush. So I think about that. Traffic is light. I'm going to stop at that Whole Foods. Next thing I know, I pull into my driveway. And guess what? I did not stop at the Whole Foods. Why? Because I was driving on automatic. It happens, right? Hopefully it's not only happened to me, and you know what I'm talking about. Versus you're leaving work, you are planning to head by the Whole Foods, but now you won't because the sky turns purple, green. There's a huge thunder cloud overhead. You run to the car and you start driving. The rain falls down, you turn off the radio, your hands are at 10 and 2, and you drive home not automatically, but you're paying attention. That's how you can do a behavior automatically, not automatically, the same thing. So the reduction of speech when we talk is a highly automated behavior. You may have had some experiences with speech not being so automatic when you say have gone through a job interview. Perhaps you've been practicing on what you're going to say and how you're going to see your role in 5 years, and you practice that, and so you're thinking about it with more intent. If you're a news anchor, let's say on the TV, you're speaking with intent and saying every word on purpose. You want to make sure you are heard and understood. And so that's a time when speech probably is not so automatic. But if you're chatting with your friends, visiting with your husband after work, all of these things happen automatically. They are difficult now when one has Parkinson's. So here's more information about that. So voice disorders may be as high as 89% in the population of folks with Parkinson's. Swallowing disorders could be as high as 95%. People may not automatically think that speech and voice go with swallowing, but unfortunately they do. The same muscles that help us speak also help us swallow. And when those muscles are weakened for speech, they can be weakened for swallowing, and someone with a swallowing problem is more at risk for aspiration pneumonia, which is the leading cause of death in people with Parkinson's. A scary thought, I know. But again, hang in here with me because we have hope and we have some strategies that absolutely help. So, what are some early signs of a speech disorder when someone's diagnosed with Parkinson's? So, you may be aware of these already. I will go through them with you. The first one is that reduced vocal volume, a quieter, a softer voice. The next is a hoarse sounding voice, could be raspy. It could be that the person with Parkinson's keeps thinking they need to clear their throat. Just feel like they have a little something there, but the vocal quality is raspy. It's not how it used to sound. They have that frequent throat clearing. Their voice may trail off at the end of a sentence. It's just not as strong. And their voice becomes inconsistent, meaning you might start off in the morning and have your normal strong voice, but by the end of the day, it's weak or it's gone or it's unpredictable. They're not sure if their voice is going to hold up for them. Some early signs of a swallowing problem. Folks with Parkinson's may have some drooling, just a more difficult time managing their own saliva. Coughing during or soon after eating and drinking. That wet, gurgly sound in their voice, or the complaint of pills getting stuck as they're swallowing. It's time for another poll question. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. Another true false. Coughing while eating is a sign of a swallowing problem. Is that true or false? Coughing while eating, is that a sign of a swallowing program? Let's go ahead and quickly have you weigh in. Coughing while eating is a sign of a swallowing problem. All right, let's go ahead and close the poll and see how everyone did. Again, you did a great job. Now back to you, Miss Byatt.
Thank you so much. Okay, now let's get on to some good news. Are you ready? There is some good news I want to share with y'all. So humans have two motor systems. We have the extrapyramidal and we have the pyramidal. Let's talk about these in more detail. The extrapyramidal, you will see, we also call that the automatic system. And on the other side, we have the pyramidal system, which is the intentional system. I want to show you how nerve pulses travel in both of these motor systems. So if you look at the green lines under the automatic system, this is tracking nerve pulses from your cortex to your brainstem, so all the way top to down. So if we're looking at the automatic system and we have the green lines, that is showing you the path of the neurons. We like to think of those pathways as a country road. You know how you're meandering through a small town, you come to a stop sign, turn the corner, go around the other way, stop again, but it's a lot of stop and start. That's how these nerve impulses are going through on this motor system. This system is highly dependent on dopamine. And you'll see the purple areas highlighted on each of these. That is the area called the substantia nigra, known as dark substance in Latin. That is where dopamine lives and hangs out. So this system, the automatic system, is highly dependent on dopamine. You understand now why things we do automatically are more challenging for people with Parkinson's. Their dopamine has been depleted, and so these pathways are not happening in a smooth, coordinated way. Shift over to me to the intentional motor system. Look at those blue lines coming down. We like to think of those as a freeway, direct, fast, and if you look down, these pathways almost completely bypass the dopamine that lives in the substantia nigra, meaning this system is much less dependent upon dopamine. This is a way to compensate for the impairment in automatic muscle movement with Parkinson's is to use the intentional motor system. So we say it's using intent. And intent is the most important word I think we help patients with Parkinson's understand and use. I want to show you now. Oh, hold on, guys. Sorry, I didn't know it was going to start automatically. So let me intro it for you for just a second. So I want to show you 4 people who have gone through Speak Out. These are patients who we have treated here at Parkinson Voice Project. And I want you to pay attention to their befores and after. I want you to watch their mouth movements. You'll see how people with Parkinson's often don't move their mouth as much. They don't have as much expression. I want you to watch how their voices trail off. These patients were treated with 12 speak out sessions. Okay, here we go.
louder, much clearer. The words are more concise. I sound like a human being. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. My wife has noticed that whether I'm repairing, I've lost a lot of voice. Only as part of this process did I learn that I had relinquished control of my voice and relinquished a significant part of my life, which is being sociable and social, and now I think I'm back in charge. I'm on my way to being back in charge. It's much softer, and more difficult to speak. I speak louder, clearer, and with intent.
All righty. So I hope that was exciting to you as it always is to me. And people with Parkinson's going through Speak Out can expect to have those same results, if not better. People keep getting better the more they exercise their muscles and get stronger. So we're going to talk about the components of what's involved in Speak Out in just a minute. So the examples now of using intent we can more fully discuss. You have examples of these in your life. The first two I've already given to you, sorry. But the other ones I want to share are examples of sporting events in your life. So maybe you are learning how to play basketball. Maybe a toddler is learning how to dribble a ball. That's a good image, I think. And that difficulty coordinating the bouncing of the ball, think about that. That toddler is using intent and learning how to dribble. First, think about LeBron in the gold medal game with the Olympics. When he's dribbling, do you think he's thinking about dribbling that ball? I think that has become highly automatic. So for me, presenting, right, that is something that you think about, you plan, you use intent for. So I just wanted y'all to have all examples you can think about of things you do automatically and things you do with intent. So you have a good understanding of what intent is. It's available and accessible to all of us. So Speak Out is the speech therapy program we do here at Parkinson Voice Project, and it teaches patients with Parkinson's to use intent versus relying on automatic speech production. And so here's the goal is to help people convert speech from an automatic function to an intentional act. So people with Parkinson's learn how to speak with intent, and it takes effort and deliberation. So when we speak with intent or on purpose or with deliberation, we are using that system that is less dependent on dopamine. So now, question, I believe we have our third poll question.
Sorry, folks, I was muted. Speaking with intent requires a system dependent on dopamine. Is that true or false? Speaking with intent requires a system dependent on dopamine. Go ahead and select your answer. And one more time, speaking with intent requires a system that's dependent on dopamine. All right, I think everybody's had time to answer now. Let's see how we did. Okay, well, we had a little bit of a mixed response on this one, but that was tough, right?
So let's go back and review. Let's do that. I want to show y'all. I want to show you here. Let's go back to this screen. So here's the screen about the automatic motor system over here. That is the one dependent on dopamine. The great news we talked about is the intentional motor system is not dependent upon dopamine. So when you speak with intent, you are not relying on dopamine. That system is not dependent on dopamine. That's why it works for people with Parkinson's. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions about that further, we can chat about it in the Q&A. Okay, I'm going to get us back to where we were. Ta-da. Okay, I wanted to highlight the circle of intent. This is the way we talk about our speech therapy program. You will notice it is a circle, which means it never ends. And we say that we are with our patients for the long haul. Parkinson's is a lifelong disease, and we are here the whole time with our patients. I wanted to kind of walk you through the process in the program. So we start with number one, doing an evaluation. And then we help our patients have a workbook, e-library access. And I'll go into these a little bit more in just a minute. We then have a What is Parkinson's video. That is on our website for all to watch. We know that neurologists don't have hours to spend with patients helping them understand all aspects of Parkinson's. So this video is a great overview to help understand what it is more and how Speak Out helps. And then we have our individual Speak Out therapy. We transition patients from there to our groups for maintenance. And then we have Speak Out refreshers every 3 to 6 months. I want to highlight the circle surrounding it, which is the daily Speak Out home practice. We talk with our patients at the evaluation and let them know they do need to practice every day for the rest of your life. It's a big ask. We are here to help with that, to make that habit be created and to have that habit be maintained. And it's so important because the Parkinson's is a movement disorder, and so happily though, it responds well to muscle movement, but it has to be maintained to manage the benefits. So let's talk about each one of these with a little more detail. So Speak Out with the evaluation. We are doing an assessment of our patients. We're getting a voice sample. We are getting a medical history. And we are teaching them how to speak with intent, and we're seeing if they are stimulable for intent. Most people are. Then we schedule individual therapy sessions. Speak Out is incredibly flexible. We have been able to meet our patients' goals within 8 to 10 individual sessions, and these are held twice a week. Our sessions are typically 30 minutes long. And I will say all of this evolved during the pandemic. We were a clinic that saw patients here in person, and everything shut down, as y'all know, seems like forever. And so we had to shift to serve our patients still to online. So back when that was new and scary, now it's such old hat. So that is one of those silver linings from a horrible time, is that patients are now better able to be served in all areas of medicine, I think, with telehealth. So we do teletherapy for most of our patients, and we have found it to be even more efficient and effective. Our patients respond really well to a shorter session. They're busy, they have things they have to do, and they have to practice and get on with their day. So our sessions are about 30 minutes in length. When a patient is going through Speak Out they are practicing twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And these are typically 15 to 20-minute practice sessions. We have online exercises that I will share more about in a moment, and we also have a Speak Out workbook. We are able to provide a Speak Out workbook for every patient who goes through Speak Out with a Speak Out provider. And then we teach them to speak with intent at all times. That is a process, as you can imagine. So, success after Speak Out. Once a patient has graduated from Speak Out, we then will ask them to keep practicing every day, once a day. And they'll practice either with our Speak Out workbook or online. So we have an online home practice. Our founder and CEO, Samantha L. Deary, along with some of our other SLPs from all over the country, lead an online home practice session. These are accessed through our website at parkinsonvoiceproject.org. They are 20-minute sessions that happen every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. They're 20 minutes long, and they go through our exercises. I'm going to show you what those exercises are in a few minutes to help you have a feel for them. But it's a great way to practice. So after they have graduated, then, as you saw in the circle of intent, we transition folks from individual sessions to a group for maintenance. That is highly effective and well evidenced as a way for patients to maintain the progress they have made. It is essential that patients keep practicing every day, and then having the weekly group helps them stay connected to each other. We'll talk about that too a little bit more. And so they then also, once they're well integrated into a group, we have follow-ups. We call them Speak Out refreshers. And the SLP, speech language pathologist, will meet with the patient every 3 to 6 months and check with them to make sure their voice is at the same level when they graduated from Speak Out, that the group is still working with their schedule. Here at Parkinson Voice Project in Richardson, we have 17 speech therapy groups that meet online every week. And so we can serve everybody in Texas. So those refreshers are also checking on, are you practicing every day? Is that habit well established? Do you need help making that habit stick? We know the science with habits. There are ways to make them be more effective, and I'll mention that in just a minute. So those groups I had mentioned, they are led by a speech language pathologist. There are between 6 and 10 other Speak Out graduates on the group. So there is a camaraderie that comes from being with other Speak Out grads. We exercise our voice, we speak with intent, and we practice conversational activities. And the folks who attend have told me it is very motivational for them. They feel accountable because they're showing up with their peers and they want to have their best voice. And we certainly have fun. I just will say that for sure. And our topics and themes are interesting, challenging, and informative. So back on the habit, will lean into that for just a minute. If you think back, let me just show you. We're flashing back here to the circle of intent. So on that daily Speak Out home practice, you heard me say we require that patients practice every day. Has anyone ever started a new habit? It can be challenging, right? And if you don't have Parkinson's and you have all of your dopamine, guess what? It still can be challenging. We know that lack of dopamine obviously affects automatic motor movements. Did you know it also affects motivation and drive? So that is a part of Parkinson's as well. And so without that motivation and drive, folks may understand the importance of practicing, but they may not have that habit well established. So that's our job. We have to help our patients get that habit established. And so there are two approaches I like to reference that help habits stick. The first one I learned about with BJ Fogg's book called Tiny Habits. It's a quick, fun read. But he talks about habit stacking, meaning you insert a habit after an already existing behavior. For instance, you wake up every morning and have coffee first thing. So maybe at 8 o'clock, you're having your coffee. Perhaps that is something that happens every day. So you don't have to create a new habit. You just have to insert, let's say, your speak out exercises right after that coffee. So you connect them. Makes it easier for it to happen. Your speak out workbook, if you're practicing with a workbook, or the computer, if you're practicing online, are right where you are, let's say. And so you finish that coffee, knock out your speak out exercise, habit established, and we're good. Another way of getting a habit to stick is called the implementation intention. Implementation intention. I think that's fun to say. So in that one, James Clear references this strategy in his book, Atomic Habits. Again, a great read. I highly recommend that. It's the science of habits and the practicality of starting new habits and helping them stick. But he talks about having a time and a space or a location for your new habit to exist. So for speak out, what that might mean is, yes, setting a time. So I am going to practice my daily exercises at 10 o'clock with Samantha Ellenderry online at parkinsonvoiceproject.org. That is the habit plan. And so the location is going to be, I'm going to do it in my office because that's where my computer is. So practicing at a certain time in a certain place helps to make that habit stick. Because we all know if we say, yes, I will try to make that habit happen. Yes, I will try to start running 5 miles every day. I will try to keep my dishes out of my sink and put them in the dishwasher and not have them stack up. I will try. But we know if you listen to Yoda, there is no try. There is do or do not. So helping our patients actually implement a strategy to make the habit stick is really an important part of what we do to help them with that daily speak out home practice. Okay, let's go back to see in Speak Out what these exercises are. There are 6 exercises. The first one I will demonstrate for y'all is our warm-up exercise. So these are a hierarchy of increasing complexity speech tasks where patients are taught to speak with intent. So on this first one, it is simply a warm-up and we connect those syllables like this. May, me, my, mo, moo. We emphasize connecting the syllables together and have them be in a smooth way, and we're projecting our voice forward. The second exercise that's done, both of these first exercises are done 5 times. The exercise with the ahs, we do 5 times if we're working at home. If we're in an individual session, we're trying to get those muscles stronger, we're going to do 10 in a row. And I'm going to take a sip right quick. Hydration is really important when you're speaking and when you're practicing your speak out exercises. We teach hydration a lot. Okay, second exercise is an ah. You open your mouth and project it forward. Go ahead and try it with me. Ah. If you recall from that video, patients with Parkinson's may not open their mouth fully. The reduced movement of the mouth shows up in that way. So we cue them to open their mouth to let that sound come out. So the ahs are done. And then we have our third exercise, which is the glide. The glide is a very important exercise for patients to retain the color of their voice. The glides teach patients to control their voice. If you want to have expression in your voice, to say, oh no, the cat clawed the furniture, or oh, it's so good to see you. All of that is just control of our voice. And so Parkinson's wants to flatten out patients' voices. And so they have to fight to keep that movement up and down in their voice, if you will. So the glide is that exercise. It starts off as an ah, and then we glide up, we stop, and we glide back down, hitting several notes all along the way. Now, this is not singing, but it is that control exercise. Let me show you. Ah, ah, the up and the down. Sometimes that is a challenging exercise when patients are getting started, but it's so important. The fourth exercise is the counting exercise. So for this one, we are segueing to conversation. This is not counting in a rote, choppy way because that's not how we talk. Our speech is connected. So the counting is connected. And so we go 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We teach them to project that forward, throw their voice forward, and say every number with intent. We may also have them count backwards. So when you count backwards, you're having to use even more intent because you're paying more attention. All those strategies help. Okay, the fifth exercise is reading. So we start off with simple phrases. We progress to longer sentences, and then we advance to multiple sentence paragraphs. So for these, we're teaching patients to speak with intent. So it sounds like this. Hello, how are you? I am feeling fine. Let me tell you about my grandchildren. Folks early on might hear themselves and think, oh my gosh, I sound too loud. That's why we record them and show it back. Parkinson's also affects patients' sensory awareness of how they sound. You may be surprised to learn how many people with Parkinson's think their voice is just fine. And so when they are going through an evaluation and they are saying, yeah, I'm fine, it's my wife who has a hearing problem, it's not me. Do you know how often that happens? It happens a lot. And it's because Parkinson's is not letting that patient fully hear how they sound. So recording, as I said, is such an important tool to help patients know. So when they speak with intent, it might sound in their ears loud. So we actually help them understand how it feels because it should feel differently. They should have more awareness of how they're speaking because that's how they know they're speaking with intent. If it feels like normal, everything's the same, that is the cue that they are still speaking with automatic speech. And so we teach them to have that awareness of what it feels like to speak with intent. We will have them practice the reading to help them say every word with intent. And other words we say are speak out. Say that again with more intent. Say every word with intent. So our sixth exercise is the cognitive communication exercise. And with these, we are segueing to that unstructured conversation task. So these are ways to help patients just start talking in a somewhat structured format, and then we move on to the unstructured format. So they may have to give us 5 examples of a certain category, but everyone is said with intent. So I referenced earlier the exercises. This is our founder, Samantha Ellen Deary, and these exercises are available, as I said, on our website. They're a fun way to practice along with Samantha to have those daily exercises completed. We also have other resources on our website. We have education and training. We have a really fun Parkinson's sing-along that happens on Thursdays. And I should have said, it says there, I'm sorry I didn't say it, but Central Time. So the sing-along is on Thursdays at 10:30 to 11 o'clock. And our singing coordinator, along with an SLP, lead folks through exercises, warm-ups, and then singing. They read with intent and then they sing with intent. Singing is a great way to exercise your voice. So that's it for me. Do you all have questions? Anything I can answer? I'd be happy to.
That was really informative. Thank you so much,
You're so welcome.
Miss Byatt. I just wanted to tell you about a singing group that we have here in Orange County. It's called the Tremble Clefs.
Yes, I've heard
And
of them.
yeah, have you? Yeah,
Yes,
Karen
I
Skipper,
have.
our music
Yes.
therapy, does a lot of work with Parkinson's. So I echo what you said about the singing. And
Yeah.
yes, we do have some questions now from our
Okay.
attendees.
Okay.
And starting with, are seizures symptoms of Parkinson's disease?
So not usually, and again, I will say I am your friendly speech language pathologist. I am not a neurologist. So if you were having seizures, that is something certainly to follow up with your doctor. The 4 cardinal symptoms of Parkinson's you may have heard. And seizures is not one of them. One of them is a resting tremor, meaning the hand at rest is tremoring, but as soon as you reach for that cup of coffee, it stops. Another symptom is postural instability, and then slowness of movement, and then rigidity. So neurologists are looking for at least 2 of 4 of these symptoms to make a diagnosis.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Uh, does the Speak Out program work on other speech issues apart from Parkinson's disease?
So we have evidence and research of working with folks with Parkinson's and those Parkinson plus diagnoses. So those are the ones we target. There are some other dysarthrias which may benefit from focusing on movement, the muscle memory movement, but those are the ones we focus on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there a fee for the exercises?
So if you practice with us online, all of the services Parkinson Voice Project provides are done so free of charge. We are a nonprofit organization and have not billed Medicare, insurance, or any patient since 2008. We have incredibly generous donors who have supported our efforts. So there is no charge for any of the services we offer. So and as you saw in the intro, we have trained speech language pathologists all over the country and the world, so they can do speak out through their clinic, hospital, or rehab facility, they would charge as they normally would. And so our therapy, our speak out therapy and research centers, those are the sites embedded in graduate school clinics that can provide free speech therapy for folks with Parkinson's like we do here in Richardson.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Um, does medication help with Parkinson's disease?
So Parkinson's disease responds really well to medicine. So neurologists typically recommend drugs that have dopa in them, carbidopa, levodopa, and neurologists work with patient on the timing of meds to help control their symptoms.
Okay, a couple of questions about aspiration pneumonia. Does research show that your program lessens the risk for aspiration pneumonia?
So we are currently in those speak out therapy and research centers I had referenced. There are 25 of them. They are doing active research into many components of speak out. So what we do know is that those same exercises that you are strengthening through our speak out exercises are also being strengthened for swallowing. And so I look forward to having other research come forward that is evidencing that as well.
Great. How do you know what does that look like, aspiration pneumonia?
So, if a patient has difficulty swallowing, what happens, and if there are signs of it, so those clinical signs are typically the wet, raspy voice, the coughing or the choking, or the feeling like food is getting stuck in their throat. There are a few approaches to assess that. The most common is the modified barium swallow study, and it is a video x-ray, if you will, of the patient swallowing. There is a radiologist typically and a speech language pathologist with the patient. Very easy test. They're given some food and liquid and then videoed as they swallowed. And so we can see what happens. So if aspiration is happening, what that means is the food or liquid is going down the wrong way. So down the trachea into the lungs. And so that happening a time or two, it happens to all of us at times. You know, you're out to lunch with your friends, eating, drinking, all of a sudden you say, that went down the wrong way. And the response from your body is that big cough, and it clears it. That's how we are made to have that be cleared. But if it happens more and more over time and that person is more susceptible, that over time can turn into a pneumonia, an aspiration pneumonia. And so that is very serious and must be treated by a doctor.
Thank you. Are head tremors a symptom of Parkinson's?
So of the four cardinal symptoms, tremors are. So it could be anywhere.
Okay, great. Is there a simple test to confirm that you have Parkinson's, or do you just have to hit those markers?
Yeah, so what neurologists will typically do is have a clinical diagnosis based on an interview, assessment, and a review of those four symptoms. There is a test now called a DAT scan. A DAT scan will show a picture of the brain, and those purple areas I showed in those pictures of the brain, that substantia nigra, there you go. So those house dopamine. So on the DAT scan, they will actually show if that dopamine is less. So that is a test that often confirms dopamine has been depleted, which is another confirmation for the neurologist in diagnosing the Parkinson's.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are there supplements or vitamins or minerals or something over the counter that a patient with Parkinson's can benefit from?
I have to defer that to a pharmacist. I do not know.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a question. I
Please.
remember hearing years ago that the medications for Parkinson's just had like X amount of shelf life, and so people would defer taking them until they were later in the disease. Is that still the protocol?
So it varies by neurologists and patients. You know, the expression is if you've met one patient with Parkinson's, you've met one patient, right? How it shows up in each of them varies.
Yeah.
And so it is that coordinated time to, here's what I'll say, taking medications, following the orders of the doctor for the exact time is a very important part of managing Parkinson's. The neurologist will teach that so incredibly well, and it's challenging. There's a lot to it to manage it, but that is my understanding is that helps the meds work in the best way.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Is Parkinson's inherited?
So there is a genetic factor that they have found. If you recall, Michael J. Fox Foundation, in doing all the research, it has found a biomarker for Parkinson's. Ongoing research is happening, but there seems to be what research shows is that it's the combination of genetics and the environment. How much of each depends on the person, is my understanding.
Okay. Um, Thank you.
Mhm.
We're just peppering you with questions
Oh,
here.
I love
Sorry.
it. Yeah. And I just will mention, Tim, 'cause that reminds me. I don't know if y'all have all heard, but the National Plan to End Parkinson's Act passed Congress, the Senate, and the president has signed it into law. So if you have not heard about it, it has no money attached to it. However, it is the first time a um, government, let's see how to say this. It's the first time there is an organized approach to handling Parkinson's. So the goal of the act is to establish an advisory council with folks on their experts in the field to help prevent, research, and treat Parkinson's. Treating Parkinson's so everyone with Parkinson's can live well with Parkinson's. And so that's a very exciting turn in the Parkinson story, I think. And we'll be hearing more about how that advisory council is formed, their work, and then the next steps to help find a cure to prevent it and to treat patients well who have it now.
That is very exciting news, and it seems overdue. So,
Yes,
yeah, that's really
absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Uh, do they use the DAT scan in diagnosing Lewy body dementia?
I don't know how it's used in that way. It is Lewy body dementia is a part of can be a so not a part, but can be from the same area as Parkinson's. I don't know how it's used in that way. I am not sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see. Someone had asked about the tremble clefs, and I believe Lauren has provided that information.
Okay.
If you want to get in touch, you can look in the chat box and find that reference.
Okay.
Okay. So before we end for the day, and first of all, let me thank you. It's such a valuable topic and really useful information for all of us. I just want to do a simple reminder that I do every time, which is to remind everyone of the importance of being aware of implicit biases, which are they're unconscious stereotypes as we care for others. And so a best practice is a person-centered approach where we view each person that we care for as an individual with unique needs and preferences. And of course, treat them with dignity and respect, even when they are very different than ourselves. Um, this does bring us to the conclusion of our webinar. We want to thank Hillary Byatt so much for this wonderful presentation and for sharing your time and expertise with us. Please do watch for the survey. It will open up for you as soon as we exit the webinar. And just let me tell you what a couple of our next topics will be before we end our day today. We have our next webinar is Tuesday, September 10th, and it's neuropsychiatric symptoms in Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. And then before that, on August 28th, we have a special webinar presentation, The Unseen Struggles of Young Onset Dementia. And so all of that information is available on our website, alzoc.org. And you're getting lots of little comments in the chat box about how much people have appreciated your talk today. And
Thank you.
yeah, I'm
Thank y'all
sure
so
those,
much.
yes,
My
absolutely.
pleasure.
Okay, so thank you all and wishing all of you a great day. And thanks again to Miss Byatt.
Thanks, y'all. Bye bye.